Okay, so yeah, I will say this is an interesting one, right? Between the Temple. I I hadn't heard of this film. I quickly looked through the listings and yeah, it was there. So I figured, fuck it. Let's check it out, right? It's directed by Nathan Silver, who co-wrote the film with his he's collaborated with him a couple of times in the past, right? C. Mason Wells. Okay, so Tim Headington, Taylor Hess, Nate Camia, Adam Kirsch, Teresa Steele Page, all produced the film. It's executive produced by Joshua Bloom, David Darby, Carol Kane, and Jason Schwartzman and Lauren Shelton. It is co-produced by C. Mason Wells, Miriam Schroeter, Jesse Miller, and Daniel April. It's associate produced by Emma Myers, Annie Schroeter. Cinematography was handled by Sean Price Williams, another frequent collaborator. John Maggery edits the piece. Kate Antonighi took care of the casting. Madeline Sadowski was on production design. Art direction, we have Madison Foog. Holly McClintock was costume design. Hair and makeup is Emily Schubert. And our cast, well, Jason Schwartzman is Ben Gutileb. Okay. Now, there was a younger version. Alright, it's not listed there. Where is... Okay, so the younger version of Ben is played by Jacob Morrell. His mother's... Okay, so we have Judith, who is played by Dolly De Leon, and Mira, who is played by Caroline Aaron. There is Rabbi Bruce, who Ben works for. He is played by Robert Smeagol. He has a daughter, Gabby, played by Madeline Weinstein, who also actually plays Ben's late wife Ruth, which is that's an interesting one, right? Okay, I think Bruce's wife is Cindy, and she's played by Diane Lanier, right? I think that is it. Yes. Okay, so we then have got here's who else do we have? There's Nate, who is so there's Carla Kessler, right, who's played by Carol Kane. Her son is Nate, played by Matthew Shearer. I think his wife is Darcy, played by Linda Burge. They've got two girls, two twins, played by Julia Walsh and Brittany Walsh. We've got the priest who Ben goes to talk to, played by Jason Grizzle. There's the bartender, played by Keith Polson. Rachel, played by Annie Hamilton. Um, there's Lee, played by Pauline Chalamet. Yale, played by Cindy Silver. Um, Alice, played by Sheila Wise. Yeah, that's probably about it. Now, the gist of the story: a cantor in crisis of faith finds his world turned upside down when his grade school music teacher re-enters his life as his new adult bar mitzvah student. So yeah, it's an odd film. It is very odd, very bizarre. Like, it's got a visual feel of something, I'd say, from the 70s, maybe like 70s, 80s, right? That kind of visual tonal look. And it has a very kind of chaotic camera approach, right? Which it does bring you into it all. It does give you this element of closeness, right? This intimacy with the work, with the characters, which is interesting. It is, it's a bizarre kind of thing, but it does work, right? It works. I like, because I wouldn't say it's the shaky cam, like kind of Bourne kind of thing. But yeah, I think chaotic is, I think, the best way I can describe it. But that's not as an insult, Now, yeah, we're following Ben as the cantor. Now, I only really knew what a cantor was from You're So Not Invited to My Bar Mitzvah. That's the first time I'd heard of a cantor, right? I knew what a rabbi was and other elements of the Jewish religion, but yeah, I had no clue what a cantor was. So yeah, Ben is the cantor. But his wife, Ruth, had died from a brain bleed. About, I don't know, it was at least a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, because there was one point in the film where he's like, oh, she died a year ago, and he's like, oh, actually it's been a bit longer. So at least a year ago, maybe a year and a half, that kind of thing. And he's still distraught, which I feel is fair, right? I think, obviously I think some people are able to process feelings quicker, but it's not, out of the blue that someone is still distraught after a year, right? That they found it difficult to kind of move on and process things. And that's Ben. But, the community is kind of there for him, right? Bruce, even though Ben isn't really doing like his main role, right, of singing the Torah, Bruce is just like, you know what, I get it, it's fine. And so we just see him trying to navigate, and it's all a bit messy. He's moved back home with his mums, and yeah, it's all a bit, they're trying to hook him up with people, but it's just not working. And all of a sudden, he, during a bar fight, he stumbles upon, his old music teacher, right? Carla. And yeah, that kind of leads us into all of this thing, right? He seems to be able to connect with Carla, even though at the beginning, because, she wants a bar mitzvah, he's very hesitant. But we don't really get a real reason for why, And I think that is one thing about this film. There does seem to be a little bit of a disconnect at times with, I feel like, the writer-director's ideas for the story and what is actually being conveyed to the viewer, you know? So, and I mean by that is just motivations, right? Like, what is Ben's motivation for not really wanting to do the bar mitzvah, other than he's having a tough time with life? Because he is still running the bar mitzvah class for the kids, even if he isn't necessarily performing, to his normal aplomb, let's say. So there is that. And then also, it's Ben's ability to, I guess, connect with people. And you might think at first, oh, is it just the people his mums are trying to hook him up with? But then you kind of notice it seems to be people in general, right? He's not really connecting with anyone, communicating well with anyone. So you kind of want to be like, why? Right? Is this because of Ruth's death? But that seems like, I don't know, it's harder to believe just because, right? You might be distraught and everything like that, right? So there's certain things that you might want to think about, but that whole connecting with just people who are being friendly to you, trying to talk to you, that shouldn't really be like as weird, And so, like, knowing that would help you understand the connection with Carla. Because it's just like, okay, why can't you really connect with anyone else, but you can with her? Is it because it's that connection to the past, and maybe you're thinking that's when you were really happy? But to be like, that's when you were really happy, seems a bit odd, because it seems that he was really happy with Ruth. So it's those connections, right? It's that aspect of things where I think we could have got more clarity. And, when I say things like this, I don't mean we need everything spelled out in, large font, right? I just mean like something where you can go, okay, I get this. I understand the pain, or I've never experienced this, but I can see where he may be coming from. You mean that kind of thing, and we don't really get that. That's where it gets a little bit odd. The film does end kind of on an ambiguity, I think it's ambiguous. You know what I'm trying to say. It ends like that, right? You're kind of like, oh, where does this go? What is, going to happen? Which, that's fine, right? I'm not mad at that. You do feel bad for a character because, yeah, there is a level of, I feel, leading on, maybe we could say that. There feels a level of, I don't know if manipulation would be the right word, but it's kind of like, yo, I feel we could have done better here. Do you feel that? But the reaction, right? Like the performances were good. The performances were really good. I think Madeline Weinstein is very good as Gabby. You know, I think we get her because, you know, we learn about her situation, so you can kind of see where she's coming from, especially, you know, within the religion and how everything is, which, you know, I'm getting from the whole heap of Jewish films I've watched, right? Films dealing with this similar kind of subject and that kind of thing, and, you know, a few Jewish friends and all of that kind of thing. So I feel, you know, that was portrayed well. You know what I mean? I think she did a great job. I mean, everyone did a very good job. The acting is very good. As I say, it's a weird film. It's a weird film. But not weird enough. This is bad. This isn't a bad film. I kind of enjoyed it. It's just that bizarre that you're kind of like, how do I feel? Right? Like there's characters that you just think, you're kind of a shit, right? You're kind of a piece of shit. Oh man, I don't respect what you've done here, motherfucker. But, you know, that's good, right? It's invoking emotions in the viewer. And that's a good thing. That's always a good thing. I think the whole VHS sequence was interesting, kind of bizarre, right? But I remember watching it and I'm thinking, this feels like a mushroom trip, right? Before you understand what actually is going on. And we do get these little moments. I think in the first third, I would say, of the film, it kind of stops after a while, but of like we're cutting to home video footage, right? Like little videos that Ruth had made of Ben, which was interesting. Like this kind of interesting visual thing to add to the palette for the viewer. So yeah, it's an interesting. I think if you liked films like, right, Kissing Jessica Stein, I think it's like 13 Conversations About One Thing, you know, Me Without You, like those kind of like I think it's Sidewalks of New York, like kind of those quirky kind of indie films. You know what I mean? Like if you enjoyed those, I think that Between the Temples will work for you. I think you'll enjoy it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's in cinemas right now. You know what I mean? Right now. So yeah, people, go check it out. And as you know, if you are a fan of Nathan Silver's films and see Mason Wells's films, I think you'll understand what kind of viewing experience you will be going into. This is the first, right, that I've had, and it was interesting, right? So yeah, Between the Temples.